Hi guys. Sorry, give me a quick second. Okay, so give me a quick second because I'm trying to get you guys onto the tripod without knocking everything over. There we go. Okay. Can you guys see me okay? Let me make sure I'm not knocking everything over on my little stand. Push you guys over just a little bit. Hello. There we go. Hey guys. All right, let me see something. Okay. All right. I was trying to go live on my webcam, but it didn't go through. So here I am. So you can hear me just fine, which is awesome. All right. Okay. Hello. Welcome, welcome, everybody. All right. Is it grainy for you? Okay. Maybe not. Can you guys hear me? Because I took my AirPods off. I wanted to make sure that everybody can hear me. Maybe I could just. Yeah. All right. Good evening. Hello, hello. Okay. So we are going to be making the Adam Crossbody bag by KM Designs. And this is the one we did for the workshop with Kasaya. Alright, so let me go ahead and just push this here so I can see myself a little bit better. Great. Okay, so I have got everything already prepped. So quick information about what you're going to need. You're going to need your pattern and your pattern pieces. So for me, I am doing a 1.5 inch crossbody strap. I liked the thickness of it better. Hello, Sherlock. And then I did 1.5 inch hardware. So I've got 2 swivel hooks. I've got my slide adjuster. You're also going to need 1 number 5 zipper. You're going to need either a slim or regular magnet. Okay. You're going to need a name tag, or any type of tag that you have is totally okay. For my connectors, instead of using D-rings, I will be using these 1 inch triangular rings. So I like these because it prevents it from swiveling back and forth and moving around too much. These swivel hooks go right into that hole, and I like it very much. So for hardware, that's what you're going to need. You're also going to need your crossbody strap. Okay, you're going to need your zipper. Okay, and I like to keep my pattern pieces with my particular pieces that I have, just because I don't want to like mistakenly cut out the wrong thing. So for me, I like to do that. Let me get you advance this up just a little bit more. There we go. I think that's better. Yeah. Okay, and so for back here, you get 2 in 1 for the pattern piece. So this is the slip pocket and back lining piece. So you're going to need 1 piece that is cut at that line, and then you're going to need 1 piece that's cut on the fold. So let me see here. I've got my fold piece somewhere on here because I know I had everything cut because I literally did it while I was chatting away with Shinover the other day. I like to make myself pattern pieces when there aren't pattern pieces, so I did that here. So these are for the interior zipper pocket pieces. Then we have our strap connector. So you're going to need 2 if you're doing the accent. If you're not doing an accent, then just 1 is fine, but one of the larger size, not the smaller size. And back pocket lining trim, 1 piece. You're going to need cut 1 of the exterior back. Okay, so that's my back piece right there. I put it on a piece of DTF directly on there, and I've interfaced it. And then I have my exterior as well as my lining of my gusset piece. I have my flap piece. I have 2 of the exterior. Okay, so this is going to be on the underside of the flap, and then this is going to be the flap itself. So maybe I didn't do 1 on the fold. I'm gonna do that one real fast then. I have 2 of the body pieces, exterior, 2 of the lining pieces. So that's everything that I have. The great thing is she puts magnet placements on everything that you need. So if you find yourself needing something at this point, go ahead and cut it out. I knew I had mine, I just don't know what I did with it because I literally put everything inside here. But it's okay. All right, so there, and then I'm going to go ahead and get my piece on the fold for that. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't lose it anywhere else. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that right here. So for me, when I do like to do something that's on a larger piece of fabric like this, I like to fold it on itself again. And then see, like this part here has some extras that I can go ahead and do that on there or do it over here. I'm gonna just do it over here. Just get yourself a nice piece. Okay. I like to fold it back so that I'm not wasting as much as possible. There we go, that's good. And then what I like to do is when I have anything on the fold, I like to clip it like so, and then I'll trim it away. This piece doesn't have to be as precise as a lot of the other pieces because this is an interior slip pocket. And because it's also an interior slip pocket, you could interface it if you wanted to. It's not necessary. If you do interface it, I suggest that you do your interfacing out of the seam allowance because then if not, it gets kind of bulky. And we want to avoid as much bulk as possible. So any time I do anything on the fold, that's how I do it. I clip it and then I either trace around, unclip it, and then cut it again, or just cut around the pattern piece. Okay, so the pattern calls for us to start with our piping of the exterior piece. So for me, I am going to be making faux piping, and I'm making faux piping out of my accent piece. Okay, so I'm going to make literally a long strip of fabric that, and you don't want anything you don't want anything too thick for your faux piping. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to there. Now I'm just doing the faux piping around this flap of the bag today, but if you wanted to do faux piping or any type of piping around all of the pieces, you can do that. I just suggest that you really look at your piping materials to make sure it's not getting too bulky for you and your sewing machine. If I had one of those really heavy duty walking foot machines, I probably could see where I could get away with using faux vinyl as my faux piping all around the sides and the base of the bag, but that's not something that I think is going to be very beneficial for me in my sewing machine, so I'm not going to do that today. So this is another trick that I do, is I take my piece of vinyl and I fold it onto itself, and then what I do is I just make sure I place it in a couple places. This right here is just 1 inch. I'm just going to cut along there. With faux piping, you don't have to worry about it being an exact size at this point because you could trim it down. Okay, just gonna go ahead and take that off. Okay, so this is literally just gonna fold on itself, okay, and then you can have as much as you want sticking out. I think I'm going to go ahead and fold that down for myself and then stitch it and then cut off the excess. If you have anything like rat's tail, you could put rat's tail inside of this to make it so that it has a little bit more like roundness to it for the piping. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that since I do have rat's tail. I have plenty of rat's tail. And then for the first time that I'm doing this, I'm actually going to stitch across here just to kind of hold my tail in place. Then I will stitch down the side. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pivot towards myself. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that I kind of pull on my rat's tail a little bit. I'm going to put that off to my right, clear off my space so I have some nice, and I'm just going to run the side of my presser foot. This is a narrow Teflon foot that I have on my sewing machine. So it is not a zipper foot. I'm going to use my zipper foot later on when I am actually going to attach this to the exterior. So if you are new to making piping, I suggest you make your piping a little wider than you need it and do as I'm doing. So I'm just folding it over, making sure I'm getting a good amount, and then you can trim off the excess. That way you're not fiddling with a smaller, skinnier piece of vinyl or fabric or anything like that, just to make sure that you have that. Okay. You can clip here if you want to, but I'm not clipping. I'm just kind of holding it and moving along as I go, just holding it in place and just pushing it down. Now that I'm coming over here to the end, I'm going to go ahead and pivot and run across. I sewed through the rat's tail just to make sure that it stays in place as I am moving along with my project. So that is our faux piping, and you could say it's faux if you don't have some kind of cording inside of it, but this is actually piping now because I put the rat tail in it. If it was faux piping, it's just the two pieces, it's just the vinyl folded on itself. That's all it is. But because I did put a piece of rat tail in it, this would be considered actual piping. So I'm just going to trim away the excess right now. How are you guys doing today? You guys having a good Saturday night / Sunday morning? I know a few of you guys from across the pond are already in Sunday. Okay, so now we have our piping. So the great thing is that this instruction for piping is also in the pattern. So I highly suggest that you get that pattern. I'm going to add it to the description box later on. I just had to quickly put this up today so you guys can actually get to sewing it, seeing it, and then I'll put a link so you guys can get the pattern. So you can go ahead and go like that. I don't like to snip into my piping until I get closer to my curves. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and set this aside for just a second. All right, so now you're going to get your front exterior panel flap piece. So with this pattern, she also gives you a flap stabilizer pattern piece so that it takes it away from the seam, which is awesome. I really like that attention to detail. So I've gone ahead and done 2 layers of Decoville Light because I didn't have Decoville Heavy. So 2 layers of Decoville Light is very close to Decoville Heavy. It's not quite as heavy, but for this flap it will do, especially since I am working with vinyl. And then also with the flap piece, okay, so one of them is going to be showing on the outside of the bag, and that's this one for me. So I'm not doing anything with this one right now. I'm going to go ahead and set this one aside for just a minute. And then for this particular piece here, it gives you a placement marker for you to put your magnetic snap. I'm going to go ahead and install that right now. I'm going to show you how I do my installation. I go ahead and transfer that circle like that. Then I'm going to grab my magnet. So because I'm using these very slim magnets, you can use either portion for the flap. There is no hard fast rule. On the pattern directions, she does say to use the male portion or the portion that has almost like a belly button sticking out. So a button, the little button sticking out of the flat portion, that was what she would consider the male. So the one with the little button is the male portion, and that's what we will use here to install it. Okay, so now that we've made those 2 marks, now what we're going to do is you can take a little knife, okay, and then you can go ahead and just slowly cut into it. Try not to make your hole too big. I like to just start it and push it through about 3/4 of the way through. I don't like to push my blade all the way through. You'll find that these markings are actually larger than these prong pieces, so you don't necessarily have to go all the way through that marking line. I do like to start them both at the same place. So now that I've done that, okay, I'm going to go ahead and put my piece through just like that. Okay, Then I'm going to take my washer and go like into like that. So I personally like to push my prongs out. This is just a personal preference. You can choose to do it whichever way you want. You could put them towards each other. That's okay. And then what I like to do here, I don't think that's the right one. I like to put a little bead of glue. Just a second to know. Oops, that's more than a bead, but that's okay. If you have a lot sticking out like that, you can just grab a piece of scrap and just wipe off the excess. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put that back on so I can use that later. So this is just a metal glue. Then once I've done that, you can get a piece of tape, you can get anything just to cover those. And because I use glue, I'm just going to go ahead and put that down just like that. So that's protecting the prongs from rubbing against the other side of this vinyl so that it doesn't wear off over time. It just, one little extra step really makes for a good bag for your client. So I'm going to take this and set it aside right now. I'm going to let that dry for a few minutes while I work with my front piece. So with my front piece, there is directions on the pattern that tell you when to veer off your piping. And I like to make 2 marks. I like to make a mark as to when it has to veer off, and then one slightly before that one, that helps me know when I have to trim off my my rat's tail inside the piping. That just helps really get that 90-degree angle when you're working with your piping. Okay, so for example, I'm actually going to go ahead and open this up. And with pre-made piping, it's the same thing. It's just stitched already for you rather than you stitching it. But inside, you'll see a little piece of cording or piping inside of it. You just peel it back, open it up, okay, and then pull out the length that you need to take out. So for me, I'm going to take it off from right here. So I'm going to just kind of put my finger there. That's pretty much where I took the stitches out from. I'm going to pull back to expose the cording, snip it, and then for myself, I can feel right there where it is, and that's where I'm putting it in. Now, where I've actually stitched is where I want to line up the back piece to that stitch line. So that way I get really close to that. Note your seam allowance. If you need to mark your seam allowance on your piping, you can do that. So that way you make sure that no matter where it is, you're making sure your seam allowance is being marked and it's being accurate. So for me, it's 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So it's literally right up against this edge right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, because I want to come in really close to this pipe, to this particular piece of cording. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim mine off by like 1/8 of an inch, just to make sure that when I am doing my piping, I'm getting right up against it. The good thing about pre-made piping is that it already has a lot of this already kind of done for you. The only exception is if you have a different seam allowance, and sometimes obviously that's not accounted for. So pre-made piping is It's really good, but then at the same time, you can always trim it down if you need to. I'm literally just slicing off that extra little piece of gray. And you're probably asking yourself, how do you know exactly what it is? I'm not really sure. I just kind of have an eye for measurements for some reason. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and clip my piping on. Okay, and then if I'm looking at it, yeah, that's going to be right there. So I'm going to overhang it just a tiny bit. Perfect. All right, so now what I'm going to do here is I am going to, right at the mark where she wants you to trail it off, snip into it, and then I'm going to do, you see how I snipped into it, but then I'm also going to snip into it this way and this way. I'm making like a little triangle, and then when I go like this, look what happens. It goes right into that 90-degree angle without any problems. It just moves right on over. Okay, get really close. Just like that. And then veer it off. Okay, so for me, I'm going to trim it down just a little bit more. Mine is a little thick, so you can slowly take it off, or you can like make a really strong 45-degree angle right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and clip it. I like to clip where I need to first, and then I'll veer it off. It's just like that. Clip, 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 clip. And you're going to be basting this on to the flap. So right here, see as I'm coming to my curve, this is where I'm going to start wanting to do my snips. About every 1/8 of an inch from the start of the curve to the end of the curve. So I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it so I can have it close to me. I'm going to go right towards my stitching, but not past my stitching. If you go past the stitching, it's not a big deal. The only thing is that you may have to just kind of like work with your to make sure your piping stays inside. That's all. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for it to flare out like that. It's like it's fanning out. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and continue to run that along the straight edge. The straight edge doesn't take as much effort because it's straight. But again, through here, I'm going to go ahead and snip into it every 1/8 of an inch. I can tell I have to oil my scissors soon because they are really resisting me opening and closing them for little snips. Okay. And then I'm going to just go ahead and take that all the way here to that mark. So I'm going to cut it off here. That's all I have left. That's pretty good for measurements. I'm going to go ahead and snip right at that mark that I know that I have to veer off at, and then I'm just going to remove some stitches and take out my piping from this portion on. So just like I did to the first side, I'm going to do to this side. Okay, open it up. Take that off. And then I like to clip, my last clip is where I like to clip where my piping ends, and then I know I have just a little bit to go right there. What you're trying to do is make sure that this is not in the seam allowance up here when we're attaching our strap, our flap to the body of the bag. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and baste this along. I'm going to baste it in at 1/8 of an inch. If you want to do it right along the existing stitches, that's okay. Just note, remember, we're going to be coming in to do a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance later when we attach the other side of the flap. So for me, a basting stitch is a number 5. That's as large as my machine goes. I'm going to go ahead and veer that off. And I'm just running right along those stitches. When it comes to the curves, what I do is I just push against the piping to make sure that it's staying flared out when I take my clip off. Okay, and then veer it off. So I hope you guys can see how I have veered it off here at a slight angle, just like that. Then you can trim off whatever is sticking out from the flap piece. I like to do that from the back side just so that I can make sure that I'm not cutting the flap itself. Whatever piping is sticking out, I am cutting off at this time. It just helps me keep my seam allowance accurate when I go to put on my other side of my flap. So there's our flap piece with our piping. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and attach our other piece to it. So we're making sure that the curved edges are meeting up together, just like so. And I like to stitch from this side because I've already sewn, so I already know where I need to sew. And I know that this is about a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So if I need to do 3/8, my foot is a 1/4 inch foot. So if I put my foot right on the other side of that stitching, then I have 3/8. But for you, it might be different, so just note that for yourself if you need to. Here's something kind of fun. If you need to mark out your 3/8 around, do that. There's no shame in marking out your seam allowance, especially when you're new to piping, because you know you want to go ahead and get really close to that piping. So I'm just making sure I'm matching up my raw edges for my pattern pieces to match. Like so. Because this top piece has a little bit more bulk to it, the bottom piece doesn't really want to match up to it because of that little bit of a hump to it. You're going to really want to have to clip it and push it to the end and really pinch it to make sure that your raw edges are lining up and you're not missing the bottom. It might look like it's bubbling here. That's okay. There's no problem there. As long as your edges, see, like right here, my edges are not lining up. You really want to make sure your edges are lining up. So I'm just kind of folding it and pushing it to go where it needs to go. You're the boss, not the fabric. You tell it what to do. Okay, now that's all nice and clipped. I'm going to switch my foot over to what I consider a zipper foot. Let me see here. I just have to find it really fast because I I kind of like let the students in the other room use it for the class. Okay. So I'm just going to use this one, which is a very narrowed foot. Okay, so on my machine, to take off my foot, I just have to push on that to release it. Take that foot off, put this foot on, and make sure to tighten the screw to secure it, and we're good. Just like that. Takes 2 seconds. It's okay. Change over to your zipper foot. You'll thank yourself later, I promise. Okay, let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start up at the top. I have my 3/8 of an inch marked on my needle plate. I literally just physically sharpied it in, and it's just kind of scratched on right now. Right, joining stitch for me is 3.5. For you, might be different. Okay, right through here, it's going to be a little bit of a bump when you first get to that piping that's kind of veered off a little bit. Take your time. Go slowly through there. Just to kind of hold my layers in place and really make sure I'm at my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance and that my piping isn't pushing my foot off my seam allowance too much. Again, you're the boss. If you need to take one of these off and kind of like help push the piping out of the way, you can do that. Oh, I don't like that. So what happened here, you guys can see, is I started off at 3/8 and then I moved down to more like 1/4 of an inch because that piping is really pushing up against me and I'm not liking it. So I'm just going to come in again and take that curve again. Now that it's stitched once, it's a little easier to take that curve again. Doing it again to make sure that I'm getting it right. There we go. Perfect. Now I really am on my 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. But I'm noticing that I'm feeling my piping, and my piping is not sitting where I want it. So I'm just going to flip it over, open this up. There's no shame in looking again. Yeah, I'm literally writing on my piping right now. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. And I guess through that bottom flap, I'm just going to have to do closer to a 1/4 of an inch instead of that 3/8 because it's really writing right on top of the piping. And I don't want that. Okay. If it doesn't feel right, stop before it goes too far. There's no one said that you can't stop in the middle of sewing and adjust things. I promise it'll save you a lot of headaches. All right, so let's see here. All right. So down at that bottom flap, because of the way the piping is, it's really not wanting to do 3/8 of an inch, which is okay. It's close, but not quite there. I'm really feeling my piping right now. It's just at that bottom seam. I don't know why that is, but that bottom seam just wants to be at 1/4 of an inch. That's all right. The good thing is that bottom seam doesn't match with another seam at the top, so it's not like it's going to be bulky anywhere. It looks and feels really good. Before I trim anything off, I'm going to look inside to see. It looks pretty good. Let's turn it out. I started losing pretty much all of my nail polish this morning when I was working on a couple of things. I'm moving things around on the other side to finish some tables to put on the existing studio side. All right, so go ahead and push that through. This looks nice. Okay. Oh. I mean, it looks really nice. I'm gonna have to turn it back out to trim away some of that bulk. But overall, it looks really nice. Okay, so it's poofy because I haven't, you guys see that? I haven't trimmed off the extra. I just wanted to make sure it looked good before I trimmed anything off. Right here, I can come in a little bit better. On this curve right through here, right through in here, I could do better about catching the piping a little bit better. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back in right there. I'm gonna hold and pinch so that I know which side it is. And I'm going to quickly put a clip on it so I don't forget what side it is. It's the second curve. And you see how that's staying right there very well, even through the turning and everything. That glue helps it all stay together really well. Okay, let me push that back out. So right in here, yeah, I can feel more space between my seam and my piping. So I'm just going to come right up against that. I'm going to start off a little bit. And get like a running start. So don't start stitching exactly where the problem is. Come back about 4 or 5 stitches and then make your way towards it. And then go 4 or 5 stitches past it. Doesn't look like it's any different, but maybe it is. It's a little bit different. It's like, it's a little different for sure. Okay, so now I'm going to trim it back using my pinking shears around the curves. just like that. Take your time, it's really thick. This is when you really need some hand muscles. Okay, just like that. Make sure I didn't go past my stitching. I got really close, but I didn't go past any of my extra stitching. Okay, so now that I've done the pinking shears around the curved edges, now I'm going to just use my scissors and trim away any excess. And you're wanting to have about 1/8 of an inch left of your seam. If you feel you need to do another row of stitches, you can. I think I'm pretty good. I had a slight shift here, so I just trimmed that away. I mean, less than 1/8 of an inch right there. Okay, let's turn it back out. Really push it. Use your hand or a tool to push out those curves and those folds. Oh, yeah. And then what I like to do is like really run it up against that seam and like really pushing against that seam. Oh, that looks so nice. So on the back of the flap, it looks more like a contrast than the front. The front, it almost looks like it's an extension of the front flap because it's the same vinyl. But in the back, look at that. Okay, so now you can go ahead and switch back off to your regular foot if you would like to. I'm going to keep this foot on for just a minute. Nope, I'm going to switch over to my Teflon because this is vinyl and I'm going to top stitch with my Teflon foot. And then you can go ahead and top stitch it down. I don't even know if it needs a top stitch. It looks really nice the way it is. Okay, let's top stitch it. Take that foot off, put back on my Teflon foot. It's really easy. It takes an extra couple seconds. I promise it will make a big difference if you use your zipper foot. All right, so now that I've got it nice and flat the way I like it, I'm just going to go ahead and do a top stitch all the way around. For me, a top stitch is the same as a basting stitch, which is a 5. You could do a 4.5. Let's go 4.5 just to be. Okay, and I'm using the side of my presser foot as my guide. There are also a few other feet out there that have guides with it. So like this one here has it so that it has 2 different, so you can see that it's 2 different, maybe over here. One is higher than the other and then it has a spring to it, so it helps with an uneven surface. But the only bad thing is it's not Teflon. It's just a regular foot, so I can't use it on vinyl. Okay, so right now my Teflon foot is kind of riding like this. So I'm gonna take a piece of, just a scrap piece of waterproof canvas, put it to the back of my foot, and now it's sitting even rather than it being up. Like skis going up. You want to make sure you have level skis. Then when you're done, just don't throw it away. Just put it to the side because you're going to need it again later. Sometimes it's called a hump jumper. Small pivots. Before I go too far, I'm trying to make sure all of my stitching looks really good. I can feel it from the other side. It looks good. Just make sure you stop and check your top stitching. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn and pivot. I'm closing that off. If you didn't already fuse your flap stabilizer to your back piece or your front piece, then you're going to want to insert it at this point in time. Look at that. It's pretty cute. So I know it's been a lot of time just on the front flap and the piping, but it's worth it because this is what everybody's going to see. This and then the straps. So take your time with that. Okay, so now that we've done our flap pieces, now we're going to go ahead and build the back piece. So you're going to get your back lining piece. You're going to want to get your back accent piece. Your back accent piece. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put pretty sides together and clip it. And you're doing a joining stitch with 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and attach that. Just like that. Okay, and then you're going to get your back piece. Your back pocket exterior piece. Now for the pattern, it has it that this is what's on the outside. For me, I wanted to really showcase this particular piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch right along this edge. If you want to trim it down, you can. I'm not going to because it's not very bulky for me. So the pattern does have you trim it down and then top stitch. I personally am just doing a top stitch. looks like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, thank you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put pretty sides touching. Just like that. I'm going to clip. And then I'm going to sew joining stitch length, 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am going to trim this one down because this particular one does go into the seam at the side, so I want to make sure it's not bulky. You don't have to use your zigzag scissors here, or pinking shears, but I like to. So now I'm going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to really finger press it, take it to the edge of the table and pinch it. Really roll that seam out to make sure that it looks nice and even and that you don't have a lot of that back exterior popping out. So again, for the pattern itself, it has you have this be your exterior and this be against the body, but I didn't want to do that. So I'm doing something different from the pattern, and I'm explaining that I just wanted to really feature something in that back pocket. Okay, now I'm going to top stitch along that edge. Just like that. Okay, so now your back piece is done. I've just kind of put this together just to make sure that it's staying like flattened down because it's kind of bulky. I'm going to go ahead and go around and just do a real quick basting stitch just to keep these layers together so that I can go ahead and start making and assembling my bag. If you have anything sticking out from the edge, just trim that away. That's your back pocket piece. Okay, so take this, put this to the side. We're going to continue to build all of the accent pieces. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab our strap connector pieces. Okay? Strap connector pieces. Just like this. So you've got one that's skinnier than the other. Okay? So for these pieces, it does get kind of thick, so just make sure to keep that in mind when you're choosing your materials. I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of double-sided tape along the center of each of my pieces. This just helps me keep everything where it needs to be. if you were making the double-sided straps, you make the double-sided straps the exact same way we're about to do this now. So if you're not using webbing for your crossbody strap, this is exactly how you would do your crossbody strap. Okay, I'm using webbing, but I'm showing you how to do the two-toned for the strap connector, which is exactly the same thing you would do for the strap, the crossbody strap. Okay, so I'm just going to take one, set it aside for right now, so have some room. I'm going to take the smaller one just to start off with, and here's my trick. Don't peel off all the tape at once. It kind of gets hairy from there. Okay, take it and now fold it towards the center. Okay, just like that. Fold it towards the center. Okay, then take the other end and fold that towards the center. If you didn't put a mark in here, it's okay. The idea is to make sure that it kind of comes somewhat towards the center. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect as long as it's not hanging off the edge. And the reason I say that, is because this is going to actually overlay on top of the other piece. So seam sides will be touching each other. Okay. So just like that. Okay. I'm going to take this one, put it aside for just a second. Grab my other piece of the strap connector. It's just wider. It's the same length. It's just a different width. And that's all on the pattern. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab some more double-sided tape, but this time I'm using the 1/4 inch instead of the 1/2 inch. Putting it down the center as well to go ahead and adhere. pieces. So again, peel off just a section of it, and then you're going to put seam side down, centered as much as possible. Oh, mine's just a little short. Must have cut one longer than the other. Okay. And it looks like that. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bulky because it's gonna get like sewn down here. I've been having a lot of practice with my double-sided tape Shinova, so don't feel bad. Okay, give me a quick second and let me refer to the pattern for measurements on Okay, so you're going to go to page number 16, and it's going to show you what to do. And it's going to tell you how far to go in. Okay. So I'm going to grab my marker, my pen. I will transfer those markings. Okay. And then now with the marking that I have, it's telling you to create a box stitch around the edge. With a top stitch length. I'm going to pivot, come across, and then come down. That's what it looks like, and we're going to repeat that to the other side. So this is what it looks like on the back side. That's what it looks like in the front, and repeat on the other end of the strap. Just like that. So now both pieces look exactly the same. Now you are going to grab your D-rings and or strap connector pieces. Mine are these triangular rings, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Gonna slide those on. It's kind of thick. See here. Well, that's not gonna work because it's not the same size. Let me go grab some D-rings. Those are 3/4 of an inch instead of 1 inch. Sorry guys, I gotta turn the light off in the hallway because I don't want anybody to think I'm here. Okay, I got that and my Diet Dr. Pepper. Okay, so 2D rings that are 1 inch, very important. Grab that, push it down, then you can clip it. You're just wanting it to meet to where you stopped sewing. Like so. Okay. That's what it looks like. Take this and set it aside just for a second, because now we're going to get our exterior gusset piece. These instructions are on page 17. Okay, exterior gusset piece. Okay, so just like that, I'm going to trim off my extra Decaville that's sticking out. Sometimes it shifts when I iron it. It's okay. All right, so with the right side facing up, okay, you are going to want to make a mark at the center of this gusset lengthwise. So for me, the easiest way for me to identify my center is to fold it on itself and put a couple of clips in here. Just to identify where the center is lengthwise. It's just something that I do, meeting my raw edges together. These are things you can do at the cutting table when you prep your pattern pieces. To save yourself some time when you're at the sewing table. But I like to show you guys what I do so you guys can replicate that as well. So now it's telling you to draw a center line. But here's the thing, you're not going to want to make a center line past the point where the straps get connected, because if you do, then you're going to see that line, and if it doesn't erase, it's not good. So what I'm going to do first is take my ruler, take my marking tool, which is my silver marking pen, and do the mark that it refers to as to how far in the straps need to go. So refer to your pattern, page number 17, for those numbers. Okay. Now I'm just going to draw a line. Kind of starting and kind of ending where I need it to, but I'm not going all the way across. It's more like I'm making a T. And then I'm just creasing it with my finger just to make sure I can see it. You can get your little folding boning tool thing and just run against the edge there, and then take your clips off. Then you're going to really see a clear line, a fold line all the way down the center lengthwise of your pattern piece. See that? Can you guys see that on camera? Yep, where it's folded in half. All right, so now that you've done that, I like to do my 1/2 inch tape here from that starting line, straddling that center line, stopping at my last mark. That's my center. If you need to take a measurement from each side, you can do that as well. Peel that off. And then, I don't know what I did, but obviously my piece is like very long. I must have not trimmed it down to the size I needed it. I must have not, because that's a lot more than I need. I must have just done the length of the thing that I needed. Just putting on some tape. There we go. Just to cover that up for just a second while I make my piece the size I actually need it to be. Sorry guys, I like made it like 5 inches too long. I don't know why. If that happens to you, it's okay. Two, three. Yeah, okay. All right, so now we're gonna just go ahead and make that little box again. Okay. Oh yeah, that's much better. All right, so now it's landing where it needs to land. Okay. So now what you can do is stitch it down across here and back over. I'm going to peel my tape and center it. Take it all the way to there. All right. So if you're not confident that this is straight, like I see that one's kind of going a little bit to the left there. Okay, it looks very good. If you're not confident that it's straight, what you can do is take a ruler and measure from the center off to the sides at the center and then at these two ends. As long as both ends on each side are equal, then you have it in the center. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and stitch mine down. Gonna move my clip out of the way just for a second. what I'm doing is I am starting my stitches where I made the box connection here, and then I'm continuing my stitches across that, coming back down here. So that it almost looks like I'm stitching right back in to those stitches that I had previously made. So it just looks like one continuous stitch. Okay. Okay, I'm pulling it off. So it looks like that. So it doesn't, I don't have double lines there. They literally just connect to each other. I'm gonna pull those stitches through the back. Pull them to the back. Take my pin marks off. Okay, pin marks off. And this little guy came off. That's okay. Put it back in. He is going to get riveted in because that's really thick and bulky right there. So you can try to sew through those layers right there, but that is literally like, that's 4, 8, 12, 13 layers right there. That's just way too much to sew through. So you're going to have to rivet through there, okay? All right, so take your threads in the back, tie them off, do what you need to do, and then I don't like to trim them off too close in case they do for some reason pull through. This is our strap connector, so it will have some pulling and tugging on it. Okay. And then get some length to it. Just grab some double-sided tape. Pop that down there just to keep your threads down. You don't even have to peel it up. It's just to keep the tails down. So just like that. Right, so now we're going to have to rivet through these portions. Okay, I have this rivet guide that I got. And it just really helps me know, like, for a 1-inch strap where the center is. It really doesn't help me with knowing where it is in placements with other things. So as much as I think it would help, it just doesn't do that. All right, so I'm gonna hold it in place and then put it right there where I want it. Same thing on this side. Okay, so just like that. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, give me a quick second. Let me run over to the other side of the room and grab my rivet press because I was using them in class last week. But now you can see why we didn't do this portion in class. It's very thick It's very time consuming. It's a great feature, but it does take a lot of time and to do that. So now on page 18, it talks about the piping. We're not adding piping to this. I think this is gonna look just fine the way it is. Let me go get the rivet presses real fast. Actually, yes, let me get the rivet press. If you have Chicago screws, those are also a very good option for here. If you don't have a rivet press, you don't need a rivet press. But if you have Chicago screws, you can just manually punch your holes with one of these. And then, sorry, I got something stuck. Okay, so manually press the holes with one of these leather punch tools. And then you can use the Chicago screw and put the post through and then put the screw in the back. It works just as well as a rivet. And you don't need a rivet press. Okay? So if you don't have one of these, it's okay. I do not suggest that you use a rivet press to do the hole for all these layers. It is not going to be a good thing. I'm just telling you. So for me, I'm picking it up. I'm going through the first 4 layers. Punching through. Okay? Just like that. Folding it over. Marking where I need to do my next hole. Okay. Just like that. No one said you had to do all these layers in one swoop. If you try to do that with the rivet press, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up breaking it, or it's just not going to go through because it's not meant to go through that many layers. It's just not. All right, so now if we go like that and we line everything up, we're going to repeat the process of just lining up our holes, making sure we know where it's going to be, and then marking our hole there. Okay, so now you're going to go ahead and get one of your rivets. I think I failed to note this in the beginning of the video. I'm sorry for my omission. Okay, so you're just going to need 2, one for each side. I personally like to have the post come up from the bottom. That's just my preference. Just depends on what you want to do. You could have the post come up from the top to the bottom. I'm just really pushing to expose the post, so when I put my cap on, I can click it really well. And I heard a little snap. That's what you want it to look like. Now that all of the pieces have been put together, I'm going to go ahead and grab my press, line up my rivet, and push. Okay, and then now that we've got that done, now we're going to do the same thing to the other side. So repeat on the other side. Hello, Lynette. Hello, Grandma. Sorry, I didn't notice when you guys came on, I had my directions up. That gusset piece is complete. You can set this aside for just a moment because we're going to come back to it really fast. All right. So now we're going to do our front flap piece and our back pieces. Well, before we do that, hold. Okay. So I've already marked my placement for my magnet as well as my name tag. That is also on the pattern pieces, magnet placement and the tag placement. All I did was go through, mark it, I fold up from here and just make a little line just so that I can keep things aligned. So different people have different size tags. I just make a small little line for me to have as a guide. If you have any interfacing sticking out from your body pieces, you can trim that away. So on this piece, so this is the body piece. This is the piece that's going to be the front body piece. I'm going to go ahead and place my, so this, hi Sassy, answer your question, yes. This bag can be made on a domestic sewing machine. Any bag can be made on a domestic sewing machine as long as you have the right materials. I do not suggest vinyl unless it's a very thin vinyl for domestics. If you have a heavier duty domestic, like an older model domestic, then I would say yes, you can probably do something with a little bit of a thicker vinyl. but just make sure that your materials lend themselves to your sewing machine. What I suggest that you do is you take 4 layers of your vinyl, sew it through your sewing machine. If it starts giving you issues with tension, different things like that, and you're not able to fix it because you're not able to do foot pressure or tighten or loosen your top thread tension, then I suggest not using that vinyl, because at any point in time you are going to go through at least 4 layers of vinyl in just about any bag that you make. So that would be my suggestion, just as a test out your sewing machine and make sure it can actually go through all those layers. I hope that's helpful. Okay, so for your magnet placement, we're going to go ahead and place that down. And then again, just like we did with the flap one, we're going to make lines on either side. Okay. And I'm not sure why that looks... I'm just double checking because it just seems to be a little bit not centered for me. Yeah, that's the center mark. Okay. So I had shifted it a little bit when I do that. Am I running out of ink already? No, it's not. So now I'm going to go ahead and get my X-Acto knife and then just do those little marks. And just like I said before, don't have to go through the entire blade length. 3/4 of it is fine. Okay, you're going to want the magnet to be on top, and then just push through like so. Okay, and then on the back, put the washer on. And like I said, this is a preference thing, so I like to push mine out. You can push them towards each other if you'd like to. On this particular piece, I'm going to repeat the same process that I did before. I'm going to put a little bit of metal glue right there. And then I'm going to get a scrap piece of vinyl, waterproof canvas, whatever you have that's on a little bit of a thicker side, and then just lay that right on top. Set this aside for it to settle. We're going to come back to that. Okay, so with the other piece, so the back piece, the other piece of the body piece, I was not on my game with fusing things. Okay, you're going to take your back pocket piece and place it. I like to kind of like tap it to make sure that my bottom is lined up. Then I line up my sides. You could find your centers. I find this works just as well. And just clip along. So just like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to baste it on. So we're just going to make sure that all these layers stay together. We're going to go ahead and just stitch right along where I had stitched before for my basting. And as you can tell here, we are going through about 1, 2, 3 layers of, about 3 layers of vinyl right now. And then when we add it to the gusset, that's going to be a 4th piece of vinyl. Okay, I like to clean as I go. Good. Very good. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and stitch around with my basting stitch. For me, that's a 5. For you, it could be different. Snip your tails. And now you have a back piece. Looks pretty good. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We had a little bit of shifting there, but that's okay. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to go ahead and take this, put this one to the side, grab our front piece again now that our glue has pretty much settled at least a little bit. I'm going to get some double-sided tape for my name tag. You're going to need to find your center, so might as well go ahead and just do that at this point. For that, oh, it didn't even go through the front piece. There we go. All right, so my center is right there. Center up your tag. Make sure my tape sticks down. Okay. Center your tag. If you have a metal tag, you can use that as well. I'm using a woven tag that I get from Hardwood and Hide. Totally worth the wait. Okay, I'm gonna bring it up just a tad. There we go. There's my name tag. Now I'm gonna go ahead and stitch that on. Pull my threads to the back. Okay. Tie them off, and then I'm gonna just stick them down with a little piece of tape. My tag is on, magnet is on, so now we are to putting on the flap. Okay, so assembling the exterior of the body starts at page 21. So we've gone ahead and done our front magnet piece, and our name tag. It asks us to put our back pocket piece on, and then for the flap, okay, so with the flap, with the pretty side facing down, okay, we're going to find our center. Find our centers here as well. You're going to need to know your top and your bottom center, so might as well go ahead and get that done. I'm just clipping. clipping just to make sure everything stays where it needs to, so that when I do my notches, it really makes sure that nothing moves. Got my center notch there. If you need to mark it out with a pen just to kind of see it a little bit better, you can. Helps my eyes. Pretty side facing down. So you're going to see your magnet facing up. So pretty sides touching, making sure you're centering your flap. Clip it in place. Make sure your raw edges are lining up. Okay, so now, yes, Christine, you caught alive. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch and baste this just along this edge here. So because there's a bit of a bump difference here, remember how I said that we want to make sure that our zipper, that our foot, any type of foot, stays even and it's not coming up at an angle? We're going to use a piece of waterproof canvas to make sure we're getting that very close to the same depth. So when we're starting off, I'm going to do that so that way my foot is nice and even. And baste that in place. Got lots of layers here, so if you have to have anything help you make sure nothing is shifting, use the extra help. Snip your tails. So we are making the Adam Crossbody bag by KM Designs. My KM Designs pattern company. This is the Adam Crossbody. This is what we made in last weekend's workshop with Kasaya and her sister Susan. Just taking some little threads that I see popping through. So that's what we're making. It's a really, really cool bag. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and make the body assembly. All right, so now that we've gone ahead and we've got our back, front, gusset. Okay, so we need a front, our back, and our gusset piece. Attaching the gusset to the exterior is page 22. So we're going to go ahead and get our centers for our gusset pieces. It's going to put, what I like to do is just make sure we clip everything in several spots to make sure nothing is shifting. Walk it down to really make sure I'm pushing out those centers. Because of the overlay piece here, it kind of wants to resist. Walk it through, make sure. Okay. So now we have our center pieces marked at our centers of our gusset, centers of our front piece, and the centers of our back piece. It asks that you do your front piece first and then your back piece. So we're going to take our back piece, put that aside, and do our front piece. Because there is no right or wrong, like front or back to the gusset, we can attach just how you see it right now. So our notches are a lot like notches, our center marks are a lot like notches in garment making. So if you've ever made a garment and there's notches, you always want to make sure you pin at your notches and then your seams, if there's any intersecting seams, and then the raw edges, okay? So it's the same way. We're going to match our gusset centerpiece to our center pieces, and then we're going to line up our raw edges and then clip going towards the curve. You may need to snip into your gusset. That all depends on the type of material you are using and how much interfacing you used. So don't automatically snip into your gusset until you've gotten to that point. Lining up the centers. Clip on either side. Okay, then I like to take this one and push it here and then line it up. Like so. I like to clip it up here and then down here. That just helps keep that at a 90-degree angle. There is some bulk because of the strap connector, so just keep that in mind. You're going to have to, I wouldn't say wrestle with the gusset piece, but you are going to have to manhandle it a little bit and tell it you're the boss. Okay? All right, we're just going to go ahead and take that. I'm going to go ahead and dump out my clip because you are going to need clips. They're your friends. If you have the little binder clips, those are even better for some tough things like this. Right? And you're going to want to sew with the gusset side up. That's helpful so when you're pinning, the flat side is against the body of, or the bed. And the curved part is towards the gusset. Just take it and really line up those raw edges and clip, I would say, just about every inch to ½ inch. Okay, so now I'm starting to get into my curve. And as you can see, it's not lining up with my curve, but it's not so dramatic that I can't like help this along. So I'm going to clip into it, but not quite yet. I'm going to snip into it in a second. I'm going to do my clips first. So I'm going to end up having to do some here, but I'll be right back to that. I'm going to continue to go ahead and clip from this side to attach my gusset piece. See what I'm doing? I'm taking a little by little, holding, pinching, clipping. Hold, pinch, clip. Hold, pinch, clip. Like so. So now we're going to snip into our gusset just so that it flares out like what we did with our piping. The only difference between this one and the piping is I like to start with the center. So try to find a point where it's the center. Okay. And then clip out a couple and see how it lays before I continue to do too many clips. The difference between this and the piping is that the piping was not a predetermined length. So therefore, if it hang over a little bit on one side, you just clipped it off. It's not a big deal. But with a gusset piece, this is already a predetermined size. So if you over clip into your notch, what's going to happen is it's going to actually have excess and it's going to push this down and then push it, push it, push it, push it, push it, so that when you actually finish sewing, one side is anywhere between 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch to sometimes even a ½ inch difference from the sides. And that can make your bag kind of tilted half, like crooked a little bit. So make sure that when you are clipping into your curves, less is better at first. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and snip to the center. Okay, and I'm not clipping too far in, guys. This is a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm probably clipping in about 1/8 to no more than 1/4 of an inch. Okay, so I did one at the center and then I'm doing 3 clips on either side just to get started. Like I said, I can do more clips later, but I can't take them away. Now I'm going to take my bag and see how it's starting to flare out. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for it to flare just so slightly. And I think that is perfect. This is why binder clips are also very helpful, because like some of my clips started shifting when I started working with my gusset. There we go. I'm working on some fun binder clips for us. All right, so again, I'm gonna go ahead and pinch it towards what I would consider the center, about halfway point. Right? Clip it. And then do about 2 or 3 clips on either side. You can always add more, you can always add more, but you cannot take it away once it's there. Yeah, that's good. I take it to the edge of the table and I kind of like clip it off the edge of the table, so I'm not having to lift it. All right, that's looking good. Now we are going to stitch it down at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance using a joining stitch. For me, that is 3.5. For you, it might be different depending on your machine. Right, let's get to clipping. Thank you, Christine. All right, let's get going. Oh, you're gonna need your little helper. Whether it's a stiletto, whether it's a screwdriver, whatever you need, use it. What I'm doing is I'm right in front of the sewing foot, right in front of my foot, and I'm taking it and I'm pushing along the gusset. Okay, it's bulky. It's gonna slide and it's gonna shift if you don't push it along. Okay, that's the difference between a walking foot machine and a regular machine foot. The walking foot machine helps gather everything all at once, whereas this foot here doesn't do that because the top of it doesn't move. But that doesn't mean you can't do the same thing with your helper, where it's a stiletto or a screwdriver, whatever it is. I call it a helper, and it's better than using your finger. Okay, so what I'm doing with this hand is I'm really making sure to push with this hand to make sure it stays in place when I stop to move a clip out the way. Okay, and then when you get to your curves, you're going to need to flatten it out and really manhandle it. It's okay, it'll get over it. Making sure you're keeping everything lined up with the raw edge. So everything is going to be the same distance. It's not necessarily the machine itself has a walking foot mechanism. Like the machine that Lauren uses and the machine that Kasaya uses are already walking foot machines themselves. It's not like an attachment that you have. It's literally the machine that they have. Okay, I'm lifting my foot just to do a little tiny pivot at that fold right there. I got a little excited because I got to the beginning. All right. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So literally on this side, it's almost matched up to the raw edge. So I start off just a little tiny bit in. Then on this side over here, it's lined up perfectly. See that? So both of my ends are lined up perfectly. I'm not having to trim anything away. All right, so now you're gonna look at your bag. Make sure everything looks good. There's no like noticeable puckers or anything in there. It looks really nice. If I did piping, it would be even better, but that just makes it a little harder to get around things. Oh, thank you, Lynette. I'm so happy you liked it. Yes, the Soot Spritz is a new addition. I'm going to try to work to see if I can work with someone that does Soot Spritz that I can get licensed to do fabric as well. Okay. Excuse me. So now that all that is done there, you can trim it away because I'm looking at it and I'm like, guys, like that's a nice bottom. Look at that. I mean, I got a little tiny little pucker right there. You can't even tell unless I show it to you. They're like, it's just really nice. It's really, really nice. So I'm just gonna go through and trim away my stuff and then just start over on the other side. Using my pinking shears around the curves. Kasai made a really good point during class. She says if you turn your stuff over and you see some stitching kind of pulling through, you can do another row of stitching. I don't have that going on right now, so I'm not going to, but you could do that if you wanted to. You go ahead and trim everything back. Okay, so that's trimmed. Now we're going to work on the other side. Okay. Hi, my love. Are you on your daddy's YouTube? All right, so now we're going to line up this center mark with this center mark. Pretty sides touching. I like to do my first clips like this so I can kind of see everything, and then I'm flipping it over because I want to sew with my gusset side up. So the same thing we did before, that I'm lining up this top portion here and my side so that I have a 90-degree angle, like a, I don't know, the 90-degree angle right there, 45, 90-degree, something. Okay, it's going to get bulky through here, so just take your time because right here we have that extra pocket piece. This is where we're going to go through 5 layers of, or 4 layers of vinyl with some of it. That's a 45, okay. Thank you, Shanova. She helps me with my numbers. Okay, so again, we're really trying to make sure that we're making that 45-degree angle right there at that connection. Clipping there, clipping there. And just move it along and clip. Lots and lots of clips. I'm working on binder clips, guys. I think I'll have the first test order here next week, I think. Okay. Clip, 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 clip. 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 Now, I don't know why the back has, like, maybe 2 snips will be perfect for this. It is, was it a 90-degree angle? Yeah, 90 degrees, like a square, right? A 45 degrees is what you quilt with. Okay, so right here, you see how it barely, I mean, it could, I can make that work in there, but I'm gonna snip into just a little bit. But maybe 3 snips at most total for each side would be perfect. I don't know why that does it. The back has a lot more give or something. I don't know. But it's the exact same size. It's just, that's the way it just, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay. Line up to that snip. Snip into it. And then, like I said, total of like maybe 3 snips in. And then let's see how that lays. Yeah, look at that. That's sitting so nicely with just those 3 little snips. Sorry guys, you couldn't see me. Okay, taking it, lining those up, and then pushing it down. Just like that. Oh, I have 2 more right here. And I'm just taking it and clipping it like that. All right, now ready to sew this next second side. Now you can, if you need to, you can take this and push it out of the way to really make sure you're seeing what you're doing. Pivot just ever so little bit, little by little. take a break. That's a lot of work. I'm really having to make sure everything's flat and where it needs to be. Using a lot of hand strength here. I just heard it. I heard it. But see, I didn't go too far because I have another bobbin. It's better than it doing it during top stitching. Thanks, love. A 90-degree angle makes the big L. Okay, pull it through. Okay. See, I heard it this time. Okay. Oh, I broke a clip. Darn it. See, that's why we need the binder clips. Glitter clips are amazing, but they're really not made for like really thick things. All right, so as you can see, both of my tops are even. That means my bag will sit straight. As you can see, look, Mom, no hands. That is achieved because we didn't have any excess on either side for it to be lopsided. Okay, go ahead and trim off your curves and then your straight edges. It's really thick through here now because we have the pocket, the gusset, and the main piece. Okay. I don't want to throw this piece away. I'm going to put that aside. I like to keep it to make sure that I have it for what I need to do when I need to even up my presser foot. Okay, so that is done. We are not turning this out yet because our lining is going to go inside of it. So now we're going to make our lining almost the exact same way. Take that, put it aside. Now we're going to start with our lining pieces. So you're going to want to get your two pieces, your zipper, your zipper pocket pieces, and your slip pocket piece. You need all these pieces. To start with, let's do our slip pocket and then we'll move on to our zipper pocket. Clean as you go. So I'm going to do my slip pocket and then one of my back pieces. Take these pieces and just put these aside for right now. We're going to mark our centers. Okay, just like that. I'm going to mark our centers here as well. Not up here because this is a folded edge. We don't want to do it there because that's obviously where there's a fold. So what we're going to do is we're going to top stitch right through here. Okay, if you wanted to add an accent piece here, you totally can do that. I think that would be actually very cool. Especially because this bag will lend itself really nicely to that. I don't know if I'm going to do that today, but you could put an accent piece here. So if you couldn't cut it on the fold, like say, for example, your fabric, you couldn't get it all in one piece because you couldn't get it on the fold, you just didn't have enough fabric, you could take two pieces that were not on the fold, and then you could baste it together, put an accent piece over it, like a piece of vinyl, piece of leather, and just fold it over itself and then enclose that raw edge, and then it will look like it was very purposeful, but you did it if you didn't have enough fabric. Okay. So now you have top stitched that end right there. Now this is the biggest difference between my machine and the walking foot machine like Keziah and Lauren have. Their machines could not go through a regular woven cotton fabric that's not interfaced. This is not interfaced, and I went through it just fine without having to change any of my tension or anything. So I use this machine for garment making as well as bag making, so it suits my needs. They only pretty much do bag making from what I understand, so that suits their needs. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to line up our pocket piece that we just did, our slip pocket piece, line it up to the center marks, clip it in place, clip it in place. Now, she has you sew it down, okay, with sewing it down one side, coming up the center, going back down, and sewing back the other side. I personally like a little bit bigger of a slip pocket piece so I can put my cell phone in it. So, I wait to look for my cell phones. I'm using them. That's hilarious. So what I'm going to do is just kind of edge it off a little bit to this side, so then that way I have a smaller pocket here for like keys, a pen, markers, anything like that, lipstick, lip gloss, but then on this side I can put my cell phone in it and I don't have to worry about it not fitting. I hope that makes sense. Pattern has you do it right down the middle. I'm taking it about an inch over from the middle just so that I have a slip pocket that suits my needs more than it would, you know, it just being down the middle. Let me do that real fast. So I'm just going to get a pencil, okay, and then I'm just going to mark out my line of where I want my pocket piece to be. So on this side over here, that would be like 3 and something. Yeah. Okay. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm marking where I want it to be. Okay. Okay, this is something different from the pattern, so I'm giving you these dimensions. Okay, so I came in from one side 5.5 inches. That's going to be my line. This is going to be my cell phone pocket. This is going to be my pen pocket. And I'm just going to baste it in right now, just based on your pieces. Okay, I'm going to get to that mark. I'm going to come up that line. I'm going to stitch right on that pencil mark that I made so that you can't see the pencil mark because it's being stitched on. Come right up to it, go past it by one, go back two, and then pivot to come back down literally right next to those same stitches. So I'm not making any gap. I'll show you what I mean by that. Now, because it's not interfaced, it does want to bubble up on me a little bit, but that's why I'm using my little clippers to just kind of keep everything down where it needs to be. All right, so that's what I mean that I stitched literally right next to the exact same stitching that I did, rather than have a gap between there. If you have anything sticking out from the edges, you can go ahead and trim that down. That's okay. This is an inside slip pocket. Nobody's going to see that. But if it were an outside slip pocket, then you're going to really make sure everything lines up really well. Okay, so just like that, it's stitched in place and ready to go. Take this piece, put it aside. Now we have our zipper pocket. You're going to need your zipper tape, your 2 zipper pocket pieces, and your bag piece, the back piece of the interior. Okay, find your centers once again. If you need to clip, clip. There's no harm in clipping. Make sure nothing moves. And then you go to do your snips. Okay. I'm going to take this and just really mark out my fold. That's going to help me make the placement for my bag, my lining piece. I'm turning on my iron just so that I have what I need. I do still use an iron even though this is waterproof canvas. I'm going to show you how I do it personally. Well, I'm going to talk you through it because I can't take you over there, but it's okay. Okay, so this piece here, I'm going to take it fold in half, just like that. Okay, that sticking out might kind of like throw you off a little bit, so I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. All right, so I'm going to take that there. Pretty sides touching. So the pretty side of my lining body piece is faced up. The pretty side of the zipper pocket is faced down. Okay, you're going to come down a 1/2 inch from the top. I don't know if this is in the pattern. This is just something that I personally do myself. There is a pattern piece for this in the pattern. However, everybody does their zipper a little bit different. So I find it better for me to do this way and then do whatever application you guys do. But for me, this is how I like to do it. Okay, I'm just gonna put my zipper pull on. Zipper pull on. I have one of these fancy dancy zipper overlays from Mormino. I think it's out of stock. I don't know if she has these anymore, but if I'm not mistaken, Leslie with Jolie Creations has zipper overlay templates like this. Okay, if I'm not mistaken. Now, what I like to do is line up the top edge centered like so. Okay, so I'm centering that pen mark, oh sorry, the fold line, and then just voila, that's it. Now you could do the whole craft text thing that she does and everything, which is very helpful, but like I said, some people do zippers different ways. Totally okay, do it the way you need to do it, follow the directions in the pattern. She does have very good detailed instructions, but this is how I like to do all of my zippers. Very rarely do I do an actual overlay. Okay, so now I'm going to stitch along that actual line that I drew. Making sure my zipper was long enough. Thought it was, but I want to make sure. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the other side. Put my needle down at that corner and back stitch, and then continue to go on the other side. Also making sure I didn't have anything falling. Take it, snip your tails. Snip those jump threads. So that's what it looks like. I did not stitch down these long edges, okay? If you need to, make a line down the center. You can do that. Where's my pen? Just had the pen. Oh, here it is. You can, so you know where to cut. But here's the thing I like to do. I like to make sure that from these side edges that I do not cut at least a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So I make a little line, I make my place marks, and that's my lines to say stop. Don't cut past that. And then if you need to make those little triangle things, you can, just to make sure you're getting right into those corners. Like that, you can do that. I say no more than 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. A 1/2 inch is probably perfect. I just like to do just a little extra long because I want to make sure it flips over on this side and I catch it on either side. So to cut that, what I do is I take my piece, I run it across back off the table, and I just make a snip with my scissors. I need to get my little tiny snips back over here. Just like that, just like a little slit of an opening to put my scissors in. And then I'm going to run across that line right till that stop mark, and then I go towards the corners. Like that. And you want to get as close as you possibly can to those stitches without cutting into your stitches. If you cut into your stitches, you have to re-sew that down, okay? Now, I'm going to go to my iron, and I'm going to press on this side and like steam. You're going to hear it. That helps this waterproof canvas kind of get a little bit more pliable. So when I push this all through, it's more pliable. Okay. So I steamed this, so it's a little bit more pliable. I'm taking my hand, pushing this through, just like so, pulling all of it through. Going on this side, taking it, running my fingers across those seams, just kind of like help release it a little bit, and go like that. Now I'm just temporarily clipping this right here. Doing the same thing on this side, just taking my finger and just rubbing against it, or you could use your little boning tool. Right along that sewn edge. Just like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this back to the iron. I'm going to iron from this side because this is the right side. This is the textured side. The wrong side is the plastic side. So I want to make sure I'm steaming from this side, not this side. If you do this side, you have to be very, very, very careful that you're not touching the iron to this plastic part of the waterproof canvas, because it will melt on your iron, and I have not gotten it out of irons before, so don't do it. And that's what it looks like. Okay, so now that that's nice and flat and everything looks good, I'm gonna really make sure it's nice and flat. Good. Give it a lap tap. Clean up. Clean up. Everybody clean up. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we're going to put our zipper on. I'm going to get my 1/8 inch double-sided tape. This is what I call my zipper helper. Putting it to the outside edge of the tape on the zipper. So there's tape and then there's zipper teeth. I'm going to go to the edge of my zipper tape and put it on. This particular double-sided tape doesn't do as bad with gumming up your needle unless you're repetitively going through it, but still, just to be on the safe side, I'm keeping it out of my seam allowance. That's why the 1/8 inch tape is great for this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, because I like to make sure my zipper closes to the left, I'm going to flip mine over to make sure that the front of the zipper, what I call the front of the train, is going to the left from the tracks. So what I'm going to do now is peel just one side, only the top. Put that down, lift this up, make sure it's covering, and then put it down. Just like that. Now I'm going to do the back, the bottom side of the zipper tape. Just going to rub it on a little bit, pull off my tape, and then make sure that I apply it like so. The good thing is it's not any like permanent tape or hyper stick tape, so you can really readjust it if you need to make sure that it looks nice. That looks nice to me, so now we are going to go ahead and stitch it about 1/8 of an inch from the inside rectangular piece. So not on the zipper tape, but on the actual backing, the main fabric. And I'm going to do this with a number 4 stitch length instead of a 5 because it's not really a top stitch, but it kind of is a top stitch. So. You're going to need to come across those zipper teeth on the short end of the rectangle. But the good thing is these are not metal teeth. They're plastic. Pull it off, snip, snip, pull it through the back. Tie off my threads. You could just do a back stitch. I just like tying it off. It just feels like it just gives it that extra attention to detail. Okay, so just like so. Gonna pull it up to the side. Hold it there for just a second with my clips so I can get a piece of my double-sided tape. And pull it off. And I'm just gonna put it right up here. Just like that. Now I'm going to leave my zipper open because I'm going to take this piece, put pretty sides touching, and I'm going to stitch around, leaving the bottom open. Now, the reason we leave the bottom open is you don't have to turn it through this particular hole. We're going to turn this back through the body of the side, one of the sides of the bag, but it helps close this side off cleanly, so that's why we do it this way. And it's in the pattern like this. Okay. So what I like to do is just kind of do a couple of clips. Just hold it in place. Okay. You're going to push this side down. Okay. I'm going to turn it this way. And I'm going to sew up this way. I want to sew as close as possible to this edge here, so that I can catch those little triangle pieces and come around and do the same thing. Okay? So down here you can fold this up just so it's folded up when you stitch. Joining stitch length. Pull the fabric away, stitch over the teeth carefully again. Take that off. Now we're going to trim away some of this excess here, because if we don't, we're going to catch it when we were doing our 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I don't want to take a chance of catching this. We don't need any extra bulk. So just carefully come in and trim away like we've been doing. Just pull the lining piece away, so you're not catching the lining, you're just catching the zipper excess. And I don't need to trim anything up here, just on the sides. So it looks like that. Now for your pocket piece down here, just to make it easier later, you can go ahead and press this and then press it when you fold it through, or just press it after you've turned it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to pop this through like so. It just helps it sit better. I'm really pulling on those two sides, so that way when you go to do your stitching, it all lines up and it folds on itself really well. Like that. So this is left open. Okay. This is open so we can close our lining through that. Okay, so now I've got our lining pieces, two lining pieces done. Now all you have left is your gusset and your two lining pieces. That's all we have left. So what we're going to do now is exactly the same thing we did for the exterior of the bag. We're going to find all of our centers. I've already done that on our 2 lining pieces, so I can set that aside. I'm going to find my centers for my gusset. Just like that. Okay. And just like the exterior, I'm not snipping into any of my curved pieces yet. The pattern has you do that. I say wait until you get to that portion. Okay? If you're using materials that have no stretch whatsoever and your interfacing is really stiff and things like that, you might have to do more snipping. But I would rather take the chance of snipping later than snipping too much at first. So I'm going to go ahead and go like this. I'm going to re-snip my center here because I just covered with the pocket piece. All right. So it could be either one here. It doesn't necessarily matter which one you do at this point. You could do either one of them. Okay. Just start off with one. So I'm going to start off with my pocket piece. My slip pocket piece. Pretty sides touching, just like we did before. Remember, we line up our notches, then our raw edges. Then our ends, excuse me. We're still doing the gusset side up. If you've done this for the exterior, the lining should be a breeze. Because it's not as bulky as the exterior. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, yes. So here's the thing. This gusset piece is a little bit smaller. So I have to take that off. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off my pieces here before I go too far. So in the pattern directions, it actually has you take off literally a hair off to make it just a little bit smaller than the exterior. So you do have to do a little bit more easing, but it gives it for a nice tight fit, and it doesn't have bagginess inside, because she's accounting for the fact that the exterior has more bulk than the lining, which can make a difference. Okay. Yep. Just a couple of snips I'm going to need to do on my gusset. Just a few. Not much. I wasn't going to have any actually until I did that little tiny bit of excess off the buff. Thank you, Lynette. I appreciate that. All right, so right through here, we're going to snip 3 snips at the most. Like, we don't even really need that many, really. It's just enough to make it go out just a little bit. Yeah, just like that. Here is a pro tip. If you are new to bag making or newer to making gussets, start with your lining before your exterior. Your lining is so much easier than the exterior. Build up that confidence before you go to the exterior. If you need to take a break and do this one day, the lining one day, and then do the exterior the next day, do that. Make sure that you have your your strength about you to get this done. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and again 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're going all the way around. I have my little helper with me. Joining stitch length. I'm turning my iron off before I forget. So what I just did there was lift my foot because my gusset lining piece was starting to bubble and I was going to get a really big pleat if I didn't lift my foot up and help ease it in with my helper. If you're going to get puckers, it's better that you have them on your lining than your exterior. But get some good practice with your lining first. So that one is done. Have a couple of puckers, but they're really not big. Just a couple right there in my corners. But they're really not that big. Just a couple. All right. Nothing big enough for me to say, let's take out a seam and start over. Let's go ahead and get our other piece going here. So now we have the other piece of the lining, but this time this is the one with the zipper. The zipper pocket. I'm not having to do any snips to this back piece of the gusset. Just because it's all coming together really nicely. Any more excess right in there, and I'm going to probably have puckers other places, so I would rather have a little tuck here and there. But it's fitting in there really nicely, so it's good. All right, gusset side up. Let's get this party started. All right. All right, our lining is done. We have little tiny two little puckers right there, but anything more than that and it would have just tapped too much ease. Okay, so trim it down. Use your pinking shears around the curves. Really trim off those excess seam allowance. I forgot to leave my opening, guys. Bonus points to whoever realized that before I did. Okay, no big deal. I haven't trimmed away this portion yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reinforce right here. And I'm going to mark it out for you guys. So right up here, coming down at least an inch, okay? And then coming down here at least an inch from the curve, and that's going to be my opening. See that? At least an inch down, like an inch and a quarter, and at least an inch from the curve up. That's going to be my opening. You never want to leave an opening too close to the edge where you're going to be stitching again, or too close to a curve or at a curve if you can help it, okay? It's a nightmare to ease in if you do that. So this is where I'm going to leave, going to go back in here. I'm going to back stitch right here, jump over, sew right here, and back stitch, so that way I can go in there, so that I can just unpick those stitches that I have and do it. Hi, Judith. Welcome. All right, so we're gonna go back through here. I'm gonna jump. I'm gonna hump jump. I'm gonna go up, right through there, back stitch, snip. Trim all my tails. So now from here to here, I've got reinforcements, so I can go ahead and seam rip right through there. I have this fancy tool that I literally do my seam ripping with. You gotta be careful when you use these guys, but sometimes they're very helpful, sometimes they can be a little dangerous. All right, just unpick a couple of them to get it started. So I like to get it started and then take my blade, push it inside, and then just run it against my stitches. And I'm just making sure that I'm laying it straight up and down against the thing, so I'm not going up or down, I'm just going straight. So all I'm doing is cutting my stitches, not my fabric. And see, just like that, I've got my opening for my turning. So you don't want to trim where your opening is, because I'm going to come back in and stitch that. So I'm not trimming there. I'm trimming everywhere else except where my opening is. See that? I'm not even going to trim here yet. Just by accident, I don't want to snip it. So I can trim it when I'm done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this, turn it right side out. Push it all out. Doesn't have to be perfect because remember guys, this is going to go inside the exterior and then we're going to turn it out again anyway. But that looks so good. Alright guys, now we're going to grab our exterior, and the zipper can go on either the flap side or non-flap side. Just depends on how you wear your personal bag. For me personally, I like to have the zipper away from my body and the pocket pieces where I put my phone against my body. So because that's the case, I'm going to put this towards the back where the flap is, and then the zipper in the front where there isn't a flap. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and push that all in there. Just make it go nice and fit. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. There's the flap. Here's our lining. Okay, you want to make sure that pretty sides are touching. We're going to line up our notches. So we're lining up our center notches first. Then you are going to do your seams. Okay, now I'm going to match my seams. I'm going to nest my seams. So what I'm doing is when I'm nesting, ooh, that's coming apart there because I forgot to backstitch. I'm going to stop right here fast. I'm going to backstitch right there. I didn't even notice I didn't backstitch there. Yeah, I backstitched everywhere else, just not there. Okay. So I'm gonna nest my seams, and what that means is I'm literally gonna have one seam, like the exterior, going to the left, and then my lining going to the right. And that just helps really lock in those seams so that it lays right on top of each other, and I'm not having to worry about them shifting. It's almost like Legos, just locking in. So now I like to do is to kind of pull on each side, and you see how that makes that, if it was a little, I don't know, baggy, it kind of helps it go where it needs to go, or helps distribute it. We got jumping jack clips here. Okay, now everything's clipped. Now we're going to sew all the way around. Okay, when you have a cylinder arm or a domestic machine that you can take off the bed portion of it, like and then you can just kind of free put this in and it rotates, that's great. I have obviously a flatbed machine. Thanks, Shanova. Bye. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start here and go all the way back around. Okay, I'm gonna lift this up, put it underneath. Joining stitch length. Okay, if you need your helper, grab your helper. Okay, when you get to this tight curve, you're gonna need to kind of like push and pull a little bit. Some push and pull action here, but it's okay. That's what I love about my needle down position. Oops. Okay. Really helping it. Just kind of like take it, push it where it needs to go. All right. All right, let's turn this bad boy over. All right. So we're gonna pull out the lining. We're to the home stretch here, guys. Pull out the lining. Okay. Through the hole of the lining, you're gonna go in and push in one of your corners or curves, and really like help push it in as you're pulling. So I'm pushing and pulling it at the same time. This is why I don't have pretty nails. All right, I'm gonna keep pushing and pulling, pushing and pulling. And I'm gonna there we And this is why we do this through the side and or bottom of a bag rather than through the zipper portion, because this much stress on the zipper could damage your zipper. So it could. I've only had it happen once, but I have had it happen. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and pull my lining and then pull my lining away from the body of the exterior. Just keep rolling it through and pulling it. There we go. Whew. Once we got pretty much the main of the exterior out, it helps. Just kind of push this thing, put your hand through now, and then you can just really help pull out the shape of the bag now. There we go. We're testing out our DTF transfer for sure. Oh, look at that. It's looking nice. Okay. Guys, this is looking really nice. Okay. Really take it and push out those seams. Roll those seams out and really kind of squish it around a little bit. If your bag can't handle you doing this, then you might have to look at, you know, different materials, or just make sure your stitches, you just have to go back in with your stitches or something like that. But you should really be able to really just push these seams out. Okay. If you need to use this to really help pull those out, for this part, I like to use this end to really push out those seams. I'm really being aggressive when I'm pushing against my seams. There we go. You see how nicely that's already starting to lay? It's amazing. Okay. It looks good. Everything's looking good. Now remember, we have two openings. We have this opening, and then we have the opening on the side. So what we're going to do now, okay, is pull the opening through the zipper pocket so we can close it. So grab both of these pieces, pretty sides together, and then pull it back out through your zipper. This is a lot less stress than pulling out all of this exterior of the bag. You're going to need some clips, but not too many. All you're trying to do is just get out where the opening is. Pull that out. Line it up. Couple of clips, not too many. It's pretty much already knows where it's going. Okay, then now we're going to stitch it closed. This is resisting laying flat, so I'm just going to snip into it. There we go. So Lynette, your question was it from my shop or somewhere else? I think I got this from Bodio like a year ago. I love Bodio, but sometimes they do run out of they only have so much of something, and sometimes they can't just get like things back in stock, if that makes sense. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and just close up my opening. Closed up my opening, pulling it all inside through the zipper. Okay, and I don't close it off yet. I like to do my top stitching before I do my closing off. Who makes your transfers? Lots of questions when you come in late. Hi, Lynette. No problem. So the direct to transfer ones I get custom made, and I get them in gang sheets. Like this. It's like literally on rolls. Like this. So I am testing it out on several bags before I offer it on my shop. So I like to test things out about 3 to maybe 6 months before I actually throw it out on my website. Because I like to make sure what I'm using is good quality and that I'm offering good quality items to other bag makers. So I hope that answers your question. If it continues to do really well like this, like it like literally took on the texture of the vinyl, which is amazing. I loved it. If it continues to do really well, especially when turning it out and like it like wear and tear, then I'm gonna offer it for sure. I like direct to fabric. That means you don't have to have a sublimation printer, and it can go on a lot of applications because it doesn't need to heat up as hot nor as long. Okay, so now that the bag is inside, remember I'm not closing off my zipper panel yet. I'm wanting to really work this top seam out and just pushing and tugging on it so that it goes down in, so that the lip that I'm seeing here doesn't have any of that lining popping up. Okay, and then I'm going to go around and clip. If I really was a stickler for trying to make sure everything was the way it needed to be, like for this top portion here, I got a cylinder arm for this particular type of bag construction for the tops. So for the top closure, I can do it on this machine. It doesn't give me a problem. It just makes it easier to do it on the cylinder arm. And there's other bags that I can make on the cylinder arm that are not as easy to do. So with the flap, you're really wanting to push in the lining, okay? Because we're going to be sewing on top of this lining piece with the flap open. So you're really trying to make sure that all of this is nice and flat and laying where you want it before you start top stitching. Really trying to make sure everything stays down, nice and flat. I'm pulling on the lining just to make sure everything lays nicely before I do my top stitching. Okay, it looks like that. So I'm actually going to start with my top stitching through here because that's the back of the bag. You could start it this way. Well, I'll start it this way, just so you guys can see, because this is going to get covered by the flap. So if I kind of oopsies or something and don't quite catch and line back up, it's okay. But just to kind of give you guys a good perspective as to what I do. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and top stitch. Move one clip out of the way. Make sure you're doing your top stitch length. I like to hold my tails when I get started. Run this right through there. Perfect. It can be done, but this is why a cylinder arm comes in handy. All right, I'm coming really close to that intersection where my seams are nesting, and it is a bit of a hump. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my waterproof canvas behind it to do the hump. I'm coming up to the other hump, so I'm going to go ahead and fold it over and pop it to the back. All right, no pressure. You're on the flap now, so this is the part where everybody's going to be able to see this top stitching. Coming to that side seam again, folding up my fabric to create a hump jumper. Oh, you check it weekly for product drops? Okay. If you ever want to look at something that I have, just send me a message on Facebook, because I'm on Facebook. Just send me a message or just add something in the comments, and then I'll see what I can do, because a lot of times we'll have restocks. Okay. Coming back up to that next join, which is actually my last one. Okay, and coming back up to my original stitching. Now here's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to navigate that, you're making sure that that needle lines back up with the original stitches that you started with. If you can't quite get that perfectly, that's okay. Go past it like 4 or 5 stitches and then undo the stitches that you first started with that don't line up. So then that way it looks like it lined up, if that makes sense. Or just get practice at lining up your, there you go, at lining up your stitches. So that's what I mean by lining up. So I started and ended, and you could see a little bit of the, where it's kind of like 3 stitches where it kind of goes over where I had started. And that really helps make sure that it looks really nice. I really squished the back, so I gotta, this is why I don't close off my lining yet, because I want to get back in here and just kind of like make sure everything looks nice. And I can't sometimes do that when the lining is closed, so. Isn't that cute? Oh my goodness, it's Baby Yoda. I love it. It is so cute. Okay. I mean, this bag is sitting nice. He's a little top heavy because of the flap, but you know, it's nice. Okay. So now we're wanting to close off our lining piece from the inside. We're going to want to tie off our threads. So just pull them to the back or put them to the lining. And you're going to need to burn these off. If you have a thread zapper or a lighter or anything like that, you can use it. I suggest using a thread zapper for anything that has to do with a vinyl or close to a vinyl. I've had a couple of scares where I've almost burnt my vinyl, which is not cool. The other thing you can do is you can get a long needle and thread it back through inside after you've knotted it off instead of burning it. So you're kind of like burying your threads inside. It's a little extra work. I'm gonna see if my thread zapper is working. It's been a minute. No. It's not working. Okay. I'm just gonna cut my threads and then burn them off. Tomorrow. I can try today, but I was running out of lighter fluid. Oh. Don't do it with your hands it is hot. It's melting things. There we go. Ooh, that's so nice. It did turn out so good. Okay. Okay, just like that. All right, let's close off our interior zipper pocket. And then we are done with the bag. All I have to do is just do my closure right here. If you wanted to go the extra mile, you can definitely come in here and do a blind stitch. You could do that. Thank you guys. I'm just gonna stitch it closed. I should get a same colored thread, but I kind of have one, but I don't have a bobbin, so I don't want to have you guys wait any longer. Kind of stuck up on that hump right there. I broke a nail. It happens. Okay. Snip your tails. Perfect. Burn my edges. Looks good. Put that in. Really just pushing those corners in, zipping it up. Okay, so the zipper portion of the bag, okay, is away from my body, and then towards my body is my slip pockets that I like to have. Okay, there we go, baby grew. Okay, last part. Last but not least, And I'm actually going to do these as my accent pieces. So I am going to do my crossbody strap. With my crossbody strap, you're going to need your hardware. Okay. For me personally, I like to put a little accent piece at the edge just to make sure everything doesn't fray. It looks nice, it looks pretty. That's just my preference. If you don't want to do that, just skip along to what you normally do. Okay. So for crossbody straps, this is a cotton webbing, and this is going to be dropping on my website on the 15th of September. So September 15th, we're going to start offering cotton webbing at 1.5 inches. All right, so what we're going to do is I like to do this portion first. I like to come up through the bar, down the bar, and then you come down through here. And then I like to do a double fold on itself. It just helps that it really, really secures the raw edges so that nothing comes out. Okay, and then stitch it down. And I'm just doing a rectangular box. I'm not doing the cross. That's done. Secure. Burn off any little bits. So that's there. So now with this portion up, so that's the wrong side up, I want to, it's a really good one, Linda. Okay, gonna go ahead and grab that, put that towards there. Okay, now I'm gonna come up and down. And so that portion of the crossbody strap is there, and then this portion is gonna go like so. So this is where I like to add just a little extra little piece of vinyl. It's not necessary, but if you want to, you can. It just gives it a little zhuzhing up. So for today, I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna double it up large enough for me to do a box. So I would say at least an inch and a half. So what I'm going to stitch is I'm going to encompass that raw edge inside my box area. So I'm not stitching on the raw edge. I'm doing it right to the outside of it. So I'm enclosing it. Sometimes if you stitch right on the edge of the raw edge, it'll actually have it fray more. You could do fray check at the end of your webbing. If you're using a cotton webbing like I am, you can use fray check. You can put a piece of vinyl or something at the end of it. Anything that you need to do. Alright, so now I'm going to do my X. So now that I've come across there, and I'm going to come across and pivot. I'm going to go from one corner to the next. Okay. Come across the bottom. Oops. a little too far, but that's okay. All right, go across, and then now I'm going to meet back up to where I started. Okay. And there's our box. And so our crossbody strap is done. So that's our back pocket right there, our front flap pocket. Let me see if I can tilt you guys up just a little bit more so you guys can see. There we go. Look at that. Isn't it super cute? I know it's cute. Okay, so now we're going to put on our strap connectors. Just like that. It's completely adjustable. This is cotton webbing. It's comfortable against the skin. You don't have to worry about it like irritating someone's skin or anything like that. I really like the cotton webbing. I'm so happy that Shinova talked me into it. Like I needed much talking into, right? All right. So there's the bag. Hey guys, look at that. Let me loosen it up a little bit because I'm short. There's the bag. It turned out so well. I think I really like this. This bag pattern is really, really nice. If you haven't had a chance to make it yet, I say do it, right? So this is the Adam Crossbody bag by KM Design Patterns, and I'm so happy that she's allowing me to do this tutorial and sharing it with you guys. And I'll put it in the description box later, the link to purchase this particular pattern. And it's really nice. So if you want to try out piping, I suggest doing it just in the flap area. You don't have to do it in the gusset area. You could if you want to, but like I said, it's going to add an extra 2 layers of, yeah. Yes, I did. I chopped my hair off. I was like down to here and I cut my hair off. I did. Alright guys, so this is super cute. Thank you guys so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. If you make one, let me see it. Tag me on Instagram and Facebook, and it's at Garner Sewing Room or hashtag Garner Sewing Room. Tag me. I would love to see it. And go for it. You know, do the piping around here. Kind of push yourself a little bit. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Bye. Have a good night.